You're worthless. The words weren't whispered, they were hurled, like glass shattering against a wall. My wife's voice always carried weight, but this time it cut deeper, like she'd carved the word into my chest and left it there to bleed. I stood in the kitchen, half-drained coffee cooling in my hand, staring at her. She didn't even look back. She was too busy swirling wine in a crystal glass I hadn't bought, leaning against the marble counter I hadn't paid for, inside the house her father's money had built. I worked. God, I worked harder than most men I knew, late nights, endless grind, fighting for promotions in an office where I was just another middle-class pawn. But none of it mattered here. In her world of glittering parties and endless champagne, my sweat and sacrifice barely registered. She knew it. She loved reminding me of it. Don't pout, she added with a smirk, as if the word worthless hadn't just gutted me. You knew what you married into. Some of us are born for more. That was her, born into silk sheets and private schools, conditioned to treat people like stepping stones. And me? I was the stone she trampled, willingly, because I thought love meant enduring. I watched her that night at dinner, the way she brushed her hand against the arm of a man sitting too close. He was older, powerful, laughing too loudly at her half-whispered jokes. She let her fingers linger just long enough for me to notice, then pulled back with a laugh, tossing her hair as if nothing had happened. My gut twisted, but I said nothing. I always said nothing. It wasn't the first time she humiliated me in front of others. Once, at a fundraiser, I'd started talking about a project I was proud of, something I'd actually built with my own hands at work. She cut me off with a laugh, turning to her friends. Oh, he's cute when he talks about his little office job. They laughed too, glasses raised. I forced a smile, pretending it didn't burn. But I kept score. Every insult, every smirk, every flirtation she dangled in front of me like bait. And when the credit card statements arrived, hidden under a stack of glossy shopping bags, I noticed charges that didn't add up. Jewelry stores, hotel lounges, private spas. Places I'd never been invited to. I asked once, quietly, cautiously. What's this for? She barely looked up from her phone. Gifts. Self-care. Things you wouldn't understand. And she was right. I didn't understand. Not then. The night it all cracked open, I wasn't even looking for answers. I was just moving through the house like a shadow, restless, sleepless. The mirror in the hallway caught me, distorted under the low light, and I barely recognized the man reflected back, jaw tight, eyes hollow, someone waiting for a blow he couldn't dodge. Then I heard it. Her voice. She was in the study, phone pressed to her lips, whispering in a tone she never used with me, playful, sharp, dripping with cruelty. I froze, the kind of stillness prey adopts when the predator circles too close. A pause, a laugh. And then, like a knife sliding between ribs, her words came clear. He actually thinks I'd stay with him. I wasn't born into marble countertops and champagne flutes. My world began with grease-stained shirts, factory heat, and the hum of machines that never stopped. My father's back bent under steel beams, his hands a map of scars from years of labor. My mother worked double shifts at the diner, her voice cracking from shouting orders over the clatter of dishes. We weren't poor enough to starve, but we were never rich enough to rest. I grew up believing every dollar had to be earned twice, once with sweat, and once with sacrifice. That kind of upbringing leaves a mark. You spend your life fighting to climb, desperate to prove you're more than the place you came from. I studied hard, clawed my way through college, scraped together the kind of career that looked respectable on paper. An office, a desk, a business card with my name on it. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And then I met her. She was everything I wasn't, silk where I was denim, laughter where I was silence. I met her at a charity event I only attended because my boss shoved an invitation in my hand. She walked into the room and I swear the air shifted. The kind of presence that made men straighten their ties and women lower their voices. Her smile was a weapon, and when she turned it on me, I was disarmed. She asked me about my life, and for once, I didn't feel invisible. I told her about my work, about the long hours, about the house I wanted to buy someday. She listened, or at least pretended to. And when she slipped her arm through mine by the end of the night, I felt like I'd been chosen. Me, the boy from the factory town, walking out with a woman who belonged to a different universe. That's the hook of people like her, they make you feel seen just long enough to forget you're being used. At first, it was intoxicating. She pulled me into a world of weekend getaways, fine dining, and endless introductions. Everyone she knew wore wealth like perfume, and I tried to mask the scent of sweat that clung to me no matter how expensive my suit. She made me feel like I'd crossed over, like I'd finally arrived. But there was always a catch. Her compliments came laced with little barbs. If I dressed up, she'd smile and say, "Not bad, for someone who grew up shopping at clearance racks." If I ordered wine at dinner, she'd tease, "That's cute, you actually know what Merlot is." Laughter followed her everywhere. Most of the time it was charming, but when it turned on me, it left bruises. And I let it happen. Because each bruise came with another taste of her world, and I couldn't let it go. The money was hers, of course. Always hers. I paid what I could, but my income was a fraction of what she had access to. She controlled the accounts, the cards, even the house deed. She framed it as practicality. Why complicate things? It's easier this way. I told myself it didn't matter. We were married. What's mine is hers, what's hers is mine. But deep down, I knew the scales weren't balanced. I was living in her shadow, holding on to scraps of dignity she allowed me to keep. My friends saw it before I did. One night over beers, my oldest friend leaned across the table and said, "She doesn't respect you, man. I've seen the way she talks to you. That's not love." I laughed it off. I told him he didn't understand, that she was just playful, that this was how wealthy people teased. But his eyes stayed hard, unconvinced. Others tried to warn me too, subtle nudges, quiet questions. I ignored them all. Because admitting they were right meant admitting I'd sold myself for a dream that wasn't real. And then came the photo. I wasn't snooping. At least, not intentionally. I was organizing files on her laptop. She'd asked me to send her some documents for a project. I clicked the wrong folder. A set of images spilled across the screen. Vacations, dinners, family gatherings. Normal enough. Until I saw it. Her face. His arm. The two of them pressed close together in a hotel room I didn't recognize. Her lips curved into a smile I hadn't seen in months. At first, I told myself it was old. Maybe before we met. Maybe I was overthinking. But then my eyes caught the corner of the photo. The digital timestamp burned into the frame. Our honeymoon. While I was unpacking bags and planning excursions, she was with him. The room spun. My stomach lurched. The coffee table blurred in front of me as I stumbled back, hand gripping the edge like it could hold me up. A cold wave of understanding slammed through me, dragging everything under, every smirk, every lie, every laugh at my expense. She had never chosen me. I was nothing more than a placeholder, a mask to cover her indulgences, a story to tell her friends when she wanted to play at domesticity. And now I have proof. I confronted her that night. I didn't plan it, didn't rehearse my words. I just walked into the living room with the photo still open on her laptop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. She was lounging on the couch, wine glass in hand, scrolling through her phone like the world was hers to command. Who is he? My voice cracked when I said it. Pathetic. Weak. She looked up, narrowed her eyes at the laptop, then at me. For a split second, I thought I saw guilt. But it disappeared faster than the wine swirling in her glass. "You've been snooping?" she asked, calm as ice. "God, you're unbelievable." My jaw clenched. "Don't twist this. That picture, on our honeymoon." "Oh, for God's sake," she cut me off, setting the glass down with exaggerated patience. "Do you even hear yourself? You're paranoid. Insecure. Delusional. That's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. The oldest lie in the book." I shoved the laptop toward her. "He had his arm around you. In a hotel room. The timestamp is." She rolled her eyes, sinking deeper into the cushions. "You really need help, you know that. You're obsessed with finding flaws in me because you can't handle how small you are compared to me. Admit it, you hate that I'm better than you." Her words landed like blows. Better than me. Worthless. Paranoid. She'd crafted a script designed to make me doubt myself. And for a terrifying moment, I did. But the photo burned in my mind, undeniable. "You cheated on me." She laughed. Actually I laughed. "Even if I did, what exactly are you going to do about it?" That laugh gutted me more than the photo ever could. The full truth came at me in fragments, over days, each discovery heavier than the last. The man in the photo wasn't just some fling, he was her father's business partner. Wealthy. Untouchable. A man whose name carried weight in every boardroom in the city. He was at every event, every dinner, every gala. And now, knowing what I knew, Every smile exchanged between them replayed in my head like a cruel film reel. Worse still, I found documents in her desk, contracts, loan agreements, signatures that weren't mine but bore my name. She'd been using me, not just as a shield for her indiscretions, but as a scapegoat for her schemes. The financial jargon blurred together, but the gist was clear: shady investments, offshore accounts, debts hidden under my identity. If anything went wrong, it wouldn't be her empire collapsing. It would be me. I confronted her again, this time armed with papers instead of pictures. She didn't flinch. She smirked. "You signed them," she said flatly. "I didn't." "Doesn't matter. Your name's there. Who do you think they'll believe, me, or you?" The weight of her confidence was suffocating. She knew she had the power. She had the money, the connections, the reputation. I was just the man lucky enough to marry her. Lucky. That's what everyone always said. And she never let me forget it. At parties, when conversations drifted toward careers, she'd cut in with a laugh: "Oh, he's just riding my coattails. He couldn't survive a day without me." Her friends would chuckle, clinking their glasses, while I stood there smiling like a fool. Later, when I told her it hurt, she'd brush it off. "Oh, stop. They know I'm joking." But she wasn't joking. Not really. The humiliation hollowed me out. Nights blurred into one another, me lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every smirk, every laugh. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. Panic attacks hit like waves, leaving me gasping, sweat-soaked in the dark while she slept soundly beside me, dreaming of a life that didn't include me. Food lost its taste. Work lost its meaning. All I could think about was her voice on the phone that night: "He actually thinks I'd stay with him." I was unraveling, one thread at a time. And yet, some stubborn part of me still hoped I was wrong. That maybe, somehow, there was an explanation, a way to fix it, to crawl back to the life I thought we had. That hope shattered the day I overheard her again. I wasn't supposed to be home. I'd left work early, sick from another night without sleep. As I walked past her study, her voice stopped me cold. The same tone she'd used before, low, conspiratorial. "No, don't worry," she was saying. "We've got it handled. My lawyer already drew up the papers. He'll be out with nothing." A pause. Silence. Then her laughter, sharp and cruel. "Yes, of course. We'll pin the fraud on him. He's stupid enough. He'll believe he signed everything." I pressed my back against the wall, every nerve ending screaming. Papers. Fraud. Out with nothing. It wasn't just betrayal. It was obliteration. Her family was in on it. The wealth, the lawyers, the influence. They'd already built the gallows, and my neck was the one they planned to tighten the rope around. I was never her husband. I was her pawn. For a while, I thought about ending it. Not the marriage, myself. The weight of humiliation, the panic that clawed at my chest every night, the certainty that I was trapped with no way out, it pressed on me until the idea of silence seemed almost merciful. But despair has a strange way of hardening into something sharper. I reached the edge, stared into it, and instead of falling, I felt a spark. A voice in me, quieter than hers, weaker than hers, but still mine, whispered: "If they want to destroy you, make sure they bleed for it." So I began to plan. At first, it was small. I started noticing details I'd ignored before: the way she locked her desk drawer but left the key in her jewelry box, the times she used her laptop late at night, the numbers she dialed in hushed tones. I stopped drinking in her presence. I started watching. I made copies of documents. Quietly, carefully. Scanned them into hidden folders under names she'd never think to check. I tracked the financial trails she left like breadcrumbs, marking each inconsistency, each shell account, each signature that wasn't mine but claimed to be. The more I gathered, the clearer the picture became. She wasn't just cheating me, she was laundering money through me. I wasn't a husband, I was a firewall. Disposable. I should have been terrified. And I was. But beneath the terror, something else stirred, an icy, focused calm. If she wanted to weaponize me, then I'd turn the blade back on her. It was her sister who cracked the isolation I'd built around myself. We'd never been close. She was the younger one, the forgotten one, always standing a step behind my wife's dazzling shadow. Quieter, sharper in her eyes but not in her voice. At family gatherings, she was the one people forgot to include in photos. One night, she came by unannounced. My wife was out, some late meeting that I knew was a lie. I opened the door to find her sister standing there, bottle of cheap whiskey in hand. Not wine. Not champagne. Whiskey. I thought you could use this, she said. No smile, just a flat truth in her eyes. We sat in the kitchen. The marble counter mocked me, but the burn of the whiskey steadied my hands. She didn't dance around it. She's cheating on you, isn't she? I froze. I'd never admitted it aloud. But something in me broke, and I nodded. Her laugh wasn't cruel. It was bitter. She calls you worthless. The words hit me like a slap. I hadn't told anyone about that night. I hadn't told anyone the exact insult. She's always treated me worse, she added, her voice low. She stole every boyfriend I ever had, every ounce of attention I ever wanted. She doesn't care who she destroys, as long as she's shining. I stared at her, searching for the trap, but all I found was the truth. Raw, ugly truth. For hours, we talked. Or rather, she talked and I listened. Stories spilled out. The ways my wife had sabotaged her, humiliated her, made sure she never rose above the role of the invisible sibling. Every word fed the fire already burning in me. By the time the bottle was half empty, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: solidarity. In the days that followed, I leaned into my cold focus. I tracked patterns with renewed purpose, logged everything with meticulous care. Where she went, what she bought, who she called. I timed her absences. I noted when she forgot her passwords, when she grew careless. Each detail was a weapon waiting to be sharpened. Her sister slipped into the role of confidant seamlessly. She began dropping by more often, sometimes with whiskey, sometimes with nothing but silence and a look that said she understood. We didn't speak about revenge directly, not at first. It hovered in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Then one night, after another too loud party where my wife paraded me like a pet in front of her friends, I came home hollowed out. She'd called me her charity case in front of half the room. They'd laughed. I'd smiled through it, my fists buried in my pockets. Her sister was waiting. I don't know how she always knew when I needed her, but she was there, sitting on the steps outside with a cigarette glowing in the dark. She's killing you, she said softly when I sat beside her. She already has, I replied. My voice sounded foreign, stripped bare. She turned to me then, eyes catching the faint light, sharper than I'd ever seen them. She leaned closer, and her hand brushed mine, not an accident, not hesitation, but a deliberate connection that sent a current through me. Maybe, she whispered, her voice like smoke, we can hurt her together. Revenge doesn't arrive like lightning. It doesn't strike once and vanish, it creeps, coils, and strikes in waves. That was the lesson I learned as I began dismantling her life piece by piece. The first move was small. Almost invisible. I leaked copies of those financial documents to a journalist known for sniffing out corruption. Not everything, not yet, just enough to raise suspicion. Anonymous emails, encrypted attachments. I wanted smoke, not fire. A whisper that her accounts weren't clean, that the empire she stood on had cracks. And it worked. At the next dinner party, I caught the sideways glances. Her friends, the ones who used to laugh the loudest at her jokes, now leaned in with questions that cut. So, there's nothing to that article in the Post. Just coincidence, right? Her smile faltered. For the first time, I saw it, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She brushed it off with a laugh, but her hand trembled when she raised her glass. That was the first coil tightening. The second came in the form of rumors. I didn't spread them directly, I fed them. Whispered to her sister in crowded rooms, let her accidentally share details with the right people. Little truths twisted into poison. That she was reckless with money. That she treated her family like servants. That she wasn't as loyal to her powerful business partner as she pretended. It didn't take long for the whispers to grow legs. People who once orbited her like planets began pulling away, slow but steady. Invitations dwindled. Calls went unanswered. Her phone, once a weapon, now sat silent for hours at a time. That was the second coil. The third came at the gala. Her grand stage, her arena. She'd insisted on attending despite the articles, despite the rumors. She wanted to prove she was untouchable. I let her. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and the clink of wine glasses. Mirrors lined the walls, reflecting her every movement, multiplying her presence. She wore a gown that could have bankrupted 3 of my paychecks, stepping into the spotlight as if the world owed her attention. And then I spilled the glass. Accident? That's what I made it look like. Red wine splashed across the pale silk of her dress, blooming like blood. Gasps echoed, whispers followed. She froze, staring down at the stain, and when she looked up, she caught her reflection in the nearest mirror, distorted, fractured, ruined. The room laughed. Not cruelly, not outright, but enough. Enough that her cheeks burned crimson brighter than the stain. I watched her break. Just a crack, but a crack all the same. That was the third coil tightening around her throat. Through it all, her sister was at my side. At first, she was just an accomplice, passing me information, whispering reminders of my wife's cruelty. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. It happened one night in my study, piles of papers spread across the desk. We were close, too close, leaning over the evidence. Her hand brushed mine, and this time neither of us pulled away. Her eyes locked on mine, daring me, inviting me. I kissed her. The guilt hit immediately, sharp, suffocating. She was my wife's sister, blood of the woman I hated and once loved. But the guilt twisted into something else, something darker. Because kissing her didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like justice. That night, we crossed a line we could never step back from. Her skin against mine, her breath mixing with mine. It was wrong, but it was intoxicating. Every gasp, every touch carried the weight of vengeance, as if we were both reclaiming something my wife had stolen from us. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets that smelled of smoke and whiskey, her sister whispered, "She'll never see this coming. Not from me. Not from you." And she was right. My wife began to sense it then. Not the affair, not yet, but the betrayal. She grew restless, sharp in her questions. "Why are you so quiet lately? What are you hiding?" Her paranoia was delicious. I fed it with silence, with half-smiles that made her doubt. She assumed it was financial. She thought I was plotting to expose her accounts, maybe sue her in divorce court. She had no idea her own sister was in my bed. The coils were tight now, but I wasn't done. There was one final strike left. One that would end her, not just wound her. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. She strutted into the kitchen one evening, tossing a folder onto the counter. "Sign these," she demanded, her tone dripping with disdain. I flipped it open. Another set of documents. More fraud, more traps. She thought I was still an obedient fool. I smiled. For the first time in years, I smiled in her presence and meant it. Her arrogance, her belief in my weakness, was the weapon I needed. Because this time, the signature wouldn't damn me. It would damn her. The end didn't arrive with an explosion. It came like rot through wood, quiet, steady, inevitable. The articles multiplied. The whispers became shouts. Bank accounts froze under investigation, her friends cut ties overnight, and the invitations stopped coming altogether. The woman who once commanded every room she entered now couldn't walk through a grocery store without hearing the hiss of gossip behind her back. And then came the lawsuits. Her business partner turned on her to save himself. Lawyers swarmed, creditors clawed, and the empire she built on arrogance collapsed into dust. I watched it all unfold from a distance, calm for the first time in months. No more panic attacks, no more sleepless nights. Just cold clarity as she drowned in the very ocean she once thought she controlled. The house went first, foreclosed, stripped, auctioned. The cars disappeared next. Jewelry repossessed. The marble countertops she once leaned against were reduced to memories and photographs no one wanted to look at anymore. Her control was gone. Completely. And one night, as I sat with her sister on the porch of the small apartment I now called mine, she whispered the words I'd been waiting to hear. "She called you worthless," she said, her lips brushing close to my ear. "Now look who's crawling." The truth of it tasted sweeter than the whiskey we passed between us. My wife, the woman who once held my dignity hostage, was now begging scraps from the very people she'd mocked. But revenge doesn't erase scars. I'd learned that by then. The panic still lingered in my chest sometimes, a ghost of nights when I couldn't breathe. The humiliation still echoed in my memory, her laughter clawing at me in the dark. And yet, I was no longer the man who flinched under her words. I was scarred, hardened, but free. There was one last thing I had to do. I took the wedding ring, hers, not mine. I'd stolen it from her jewelry box the night she left the house for the last time, shrieking threats about lawyers and revenge that never materialized. The band was heavy in my palm, not with gold but with everything it had represented, the false promise, the cage, the weapon she'd used to keep me tethered. I brought it to a jeweler. Asked them to melt it down. What they handed back to me wasn't a ring anymore. It was a blade, slim and sharp, its edge glinting in the light. A knife forged from betrayal. I kept it hidden in a drawer, not to use, but to remind myself, never again. Sometimes, I wonder if she still thinks about me, if, in whatever hole she's crawled into, she curses my name the way she once laughed at it. Sometimes, I wonder if the world sees her for what she is, or if she's managed to spin yet another story to shield herself. But it doesn't matter. Because in the end, I won. She gave me nothing but betrayal, so I gave her back the only thing she couldn't buy: consequences.